iPhone 16e starts at $600. Now 9 months later, one can likely get it at $500 or even cheaper price. At this price, one can also get a 2-year-old iPhone 15, but I chose the 16e over the 15. And here's why. Reason number 1, the battery life. To give you the result first, according to Dave2D's test, iPhone 16e has the longest battery life among all regular-sized iPhone. So with that out of the way, let's talk about what makes a phone last longer. Think the battery life as a water tank with a hole in it. To keep the water in the tank longer, what do? There seems only 2 ways, right? One is to make the container bigger so that it can hold more water. Or 2 is to make the hole smaller so that the water drains more slowly. And iPhone 16e does exactly these 2 things. 1, bigger container, which is the battery side. Since there's only 1 camera, Apple redesigned the internal layout so that it can fit in a bigger battery at 4005 mAh. In fact, this is the biggest battery Apple has ever put into a regular size iPhone, larger than any of the iPhones like iPhone 15, 16, or 17. And following the same analogy, how iPhone 16e is making the hole smaller, or how they managed to increase the power efficiency to achieve longer battery life. Mostly by 2 ways. Number 1 is the C1 modem. The modem is the components that gives your phone cellular signals, such as 4G and 5G networks. The iPhone 16e is the first iPhone to use Apple's in-house C1 modem. 6 years after Apple acquiring Intel's modem business for $1 billion back in 2019. Part of the long-term strategy to reduce the reliance on Qualcomm. Although the newly released iPhone 17 still using Qualcomm, likely due to the lacking feature of the millimeter wave 5G support at the moment. But anyway, Apple never officially said how much the battery the C1 is able to save, but according to the test done by Jike1, the C1 in iPhone 16e does draw less power compared to the iPhone 16 at around 23% less. So with a bigger battery and less consuming hardwares, it's not surprising that the iPhone 16e has the longest battery life among all regular sized iPhones. Besides the battery life, the other reason I go for the 16e is because it got more recent chip, right? A18. Supposedly it can last longer for future software updates compared with the A16 that iPhone 15 uses. So those are the 2 main reasons I go for the 16e. Longer battery life and more recent chip for future updates. And oh, by the way, the other good thing about iPhone 16e is that it supports Apple Intelligence. But to be fair, that's more of a future promise, at least in my region. It wasn't something that I factor into my buying decision. But I thought it's good to mention that, the phone does support Apple Intelligence compared with other older model where it doesn't, right? So with all being said, this phone does make quite a few compromises. I got a list of them, and I will quickly run through them, and so you can decide whether these compromises are the deal breaker for you and they push you towards a higher end iPhone. Number 1, the display. As mentioned earlier, the 16e features a dimmer screen. Also, the refresh rate is at 60 GHz. Compromise number 2, no MagSafe, but still have wireless charging. The MagSafe can be easily fixed with a phone case though. Compromise number 3, the camera. Not only it lacks the ultra-wide camera, but there's also small compromise on the main camera. Initially, I thought the camera was the same as the iPhone 16's main camera, right? But no, the camera on the iPhone 16e features smaller sensor. And the smaller sensor captures less light, which will affect the image quality on the low light condition. Compromise number 4, missing ultra-wide band. Without this, basically you cannot use the iPhone's precision finding feature to get the precise location of your AirTags and your AirPods. But you can still track their location by using the GPS, but just less precise without the ultra-wide band. Compromise number 5, 1 less GPU core. For day-to-day use, there's basically no difference. One might only notice the difference when they play in graphic-intensive games. Compromise number 6, no millimeter wave 5G support. But make no mistake, this is not the kind of 5G most people use on their phone every day. The 5G most people see on their phone is called sub-6 GHz 5G, which has much wider coverage and far better signal penetration than the millimeter wave 5G. So frankly speaking, I doubt most people people would ever notice if their phone has millimeter wave 5G support or not. Compromise number 7, the notch instead of the dynamic island. For this, I'm not even sure if this is really count as a compromise. Yes, the dynamic island does indeed feels more premium and it can show more information on the screen. But in everyday use, I don't feel like I'm missing out on much, especially if you're someone like me coming from an iPhone 13. So after all this discussion, right, who is this phone really for? Despite MKBHD naming it the bust of the year, right? I don't think it's a bad phone per se. I think the real issue is the launching price at $599. But 9 months later, after iPhone 17, the price becomes $499. And I think it actually becomes a pretty solid deal. Because when you really think about it, what is considered a good phone? For me, I would say 3 things. Number 1 is it should able to run reasonably fast, right? Juggle through different apps throughout the day. And number 2 is it should last longer. You don't have to worry about charging it every now and then, so the battery life should be good. And number 3 is it should have a decent camera for everyday pictures. You know, it doesn't have to be great camera. It needs to be reliable and a decent one. And I think iPhone 16e does above 3 essential things very well. You know, in some areas, it's even better, like the battery life. It outperforms some of the higher end model. You know, all of that, at the cost of less than half of the price of the Pro model. That's why I said iPhone 16e is actually the right phone for majority of the people. But of course, Apple doesn't want you to think this way, as they would rather push you to a higher model, making you think that you need a Pro, you need a Pro Max, and so on and so forth. But at some point, you know, you gotta ask yourself, what do you really need out of a phone? For me, the iPhone 16e serves everything I need from a phone. If I want to take a better picture, I could use the money I saved on the phone for a camera. If I want to play games, I could grab an iPad mini with the money I didn't spend on a higher end iPhone. These are my decision making process when it comes to buying a new phone. I remember I used to be the one who just chasing the latest and greatest, right? But after a few years, I start questioning what do I really need from a phone, right? And the iPhone 16e is the one that I make the final call. Hopefully it can be useful to some. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.